Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another Chart of the Week. I'm Lisa Miller. I wanted to do two quick things before we get started. First, thank you for the 250 or close to 250 that have already registered for the next virtual Lunch and Learn. The topic is Gen Z. Got the link below. If you haven't registered, you are not going to want to miss it. I did want to tell you about two books on Gen Z that have completely changed the way I've been thinking about Gen Z. The first is Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And then the other is called The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan, but then co-authored with Greg Lukianoff. And yes, if you know Mike, that is his brother. These two books have completely shaped and informed how I think about Gen Z. So much so that in a survey I have going out next week, I've been inspired to continue some of their thinking and ask new questions of Gen Z. But let's get started for today. Our topic is centered around Gen Z, and it's this idea that we were born to discover, but sometime with all the noise going on right now, we have transformed into this defend mindset, and it's quite exhausting. So let's take a look at this chart. I want to make sure to confirm that the data I'm going to be showing you today is among just Gen Z, and I'm defining them as 18 to 30 years old. And so some of them are in school and some of them are already in the workforce. So the first insight is this idea of real world readiness. And when you look at the three data points, the first one is Gen Z is basically saying, you know what, I learn better by doing things versus just sitting and listening or reading. But the other thing is what they're learning in school, they're really questioning, is it really preparing them for the real world? And then you compound that with the fact they're having to do all these standardized tests that may or may not reflect their true talents. So in this defend versus discover mindset, discovering they really want to learn and grow, but yet they're in a defend mode because they're just being positioned, plopped in front of a screen, and then they're asked to pass a test versus being able to experience and learn and discover through that way. So the second insight is this idea of rediscover yourself. The two data points here are, the first is this idea that students in Gen Z actually really wants help and schools help to find out what they're good at. And to do that, you've got to be able to try new things. But at the same time, they are concerned that schools are actually valuing this idea of compliance versus curiosity. So the input of that is the discovery is like, yeah, I want to find out when I'm unique, what makes me different. But the defense side is they're being kind of forced to fit in a mold. And anytime you ask students to kind of fit into a mold or conform, then they're just going to lose their own identity. So maybe education could be more around a reflective mirror versus just a one-size-fits-all mold. The third point is really this idea of permission to try, and try again. Now, originally, I actually wrote that, permission to try and fail, but you guys know I hate that, fail faster, fail often, because we should not be in a pass-fail mindset. But when you look at these two data points, it's basically saying that they want to be able to have more self-expression and want to be able to have more curiosity. But the sad thing is, close to half or over half are basically saying they've lost their creativity as a child. And so curiosity is actually that engine that helps us grow. It helps us become resilient. And when we do things that don't work out, we absolutely learn from that. And I think Gen Z understands that, but given all the circumstances that they're in, they just feel like they're in this defend mode all the time versus this discovery mode. And that is not a recipe for success. So what's the so what, now what? As I started at the beginning, living in this world of defend mode all the time is exhausting. And so what can we do about it? Well, if you're hiring, if you're an educator, if you're a trainer, if you're just working with people in general, let me give you just a couple of ideas to think about. How can we actually move from a defend mindset to a discovery mindset? And I'll give you just one simple example. A defend mindset is, what do I need to know and how do I prove that I know it? And that's a defend mindset. Versus a discovery is, how do I explore? It's how, not what. How do I explore? How do I learn and grow? And then who do I want to become? And that is a very different mindset that when we're working with Gen Z, we're working with our coworkers, we're even just living our lives. Remembering that discovery mindset, I think would bring us a lot more joy and happiness. And I think at the end of the day, it gets us out of that exhausting defend mode. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one today. And don't forget to register down below for the Gen Z Virtual Lunch and Learn, link down below, and we'll put the link to those 2 books that I mentioned at the front. Definitely check those out. Maybe that's our homework for our session next month. All right, next time. Thank you.